Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to this episode. Before it starts, I just want to let you know there was a little bit of technical issues. So, with that being said, my guest was Jon Zazula, aka Jonny Z, founder of Megaforce Records, the man who is responsible for getting Metallica off the ground, working with a ton of excellent bands like Anthrax, Testament, you name it. He was there in the early days. Without this guy, I don't think a lot of bands would be around. So the technical issue was the first 5 minutes didn't really record. I asked him what his roots were in the metal scene, and obviously since he'd been around longer, his answer was a lot different than most people's. So it was pretty interesting to hear what he thinks as far as like what was metal, what was loud, what was heavy, and it kind of picks up right in the middle of that. And obviously I didn't get to do the introduction because it got cut out, so that's why it's at the beginning of this. Thank you so much for listening and enjoy the episode.
Greetings, my excellent friend.
Welcome to Most Excellent Adventure to
Heavy Metal History.
Live, because I love live music and nobody else was doing it. So I figured what better way to do it than to bring them in myself.
So it was
I
just
had
more
no
of
money, I had no knowledge, I had no nothing. I just wanted to do it and I did it. Don't ask me how I did it.
Yeah. It was just something you had to do because it felt right.
Exactly, Dustin. Exactly.
Well, what were some kind of struggles and challenges that you had in those early days? Because I mean, if you were starting with like nothing and you kind of had to build it up from nothing, what are some roadblocks that you ran into with trying to figure out like how to get these bands here and how to see them?
Well, you have to realize that I had to raise money by not paying for the records I was bringing in from my distributor when I had a record store.
Mm-hmm.
So if I made $1,200 for the weekend or $700 for the weekend, who knows what I really made back then.
Yeah.
I took all that money and I didn't eat. I didn't pay my bills. I didn't pay my mortgage. I didn't pay for food. I didn't pay my lights,
Wow.
my electric. And I took that money and I brought the bands in. It was funny. We sold out the first Anvil show and made a few cents, not a lot. But I left that show feeling the greatest I ever felt since I saw maybe Cream in '68,
Mm-hmm.
Really high on the music. I get home and my house is dark because I didn't pay the electric bill.
Damn. So it was just like you had to have this enjoyment and it didn't matter what it cost. It was like, I need to do this.
And the secret of it was Marsha didn't kill me. My wife.
Yeah. Yeah, she's had
She
your back
loved
for
it
years,
as much
right?
as me. What?
She's had your back all these years, right?
She's had my back. She's had my front.
So was Anvil the first band that you brought, or who was the first band that you brought?
Yeah. The first band we brought over was Anvil.
Nice.
We did a show in the Route 18 where the flea market was,
Mm-hmm.
in a little auditorium on a 6-inch stage. Marsha and I had to bring all the chairs, and we rented them from a church. Chairs that nobody sat in, just destroyed.
Oh no.
There was no security, no nothing. There was about 800 people. Came on our word that it was going to be a great show.
And what year was that?
That was 1982.
82.
August the 13th.
Wow.
Friday the 13th. It was the Friday night rock show.
Okay. Man.
Because they were having like the Earls and the Duprees and all the bebop and what do you call it? Old 50s, 60s music at the Route 18 flea market, and we wanted to let people know that this is rock. This isn't I'm the Duke of Earl kind of music,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we called it the Friday the 13th rock show instead of heavy metal show. I mean, Nobody would come to a heavy metal show. Nobody knew what heavy metal was.
Yeah, yeah, I was still a little bit early with that. So,
Yes.
so I guess, in your opinion, if you kind of trace stuff back, would you consider Black Sabbath to be the one that like started it, or who would it be in your opinion that kind of started heavy metal?
Well, Cream and Zeppelin were before Sabbath, but Sabbath came right away too. I think they were 71.
Yeah. Yeah, it
And
was up there.
I think they're the forefathers of deliberate heavy metal music.
Hmm.
Because nobody was doing anything other than aggressive, heavy, psychedelic music,
Yeah. Yeah, even some of
So,
the early Judas Priest stuff fell more on like the kind of rock side of things up until a certain point.
yeah, but that was as heavy as it gets,
Yeah, of course.
There was a group out of England called Holocaust
Hmm.
that had a song called Heavy Metal Mania back in 81.
Oh,
That
wow.
was really heavy. And they were one of my favorite, also early bands. But Black Sabbath, I think you got to give credit to as the deliberate forefathers of heavy metal.
Hmm. Yeah, it's always like a weird tracing back of like the lineage of everything. It's like, well, this band gets a lot of the credit, but there were bands that they drew inspiration on to kind of make heavier and heavier, and I think that's important to look at as well.
Hmm.
So after you brought Anvil to play a show, where did you start getting the idea to do Megaforce and get a record label off the ground?
Well, we basically brought Anvil in, we brought Raven in. We were getting ready to bring Venom in. With Venom, we brought in Metallica to open for 12 shows we had for them, which was the Sister and Who Knows Who, Vandenberg and the Rods. We had a whole lineup of shows for Metallica when we discovered Metallica.
Oh yeah, I definitely
And,
want to get into that here in a minute.
well, it's been said a lot, but you asked an interesting question, because the label basically was formed because nobody understood what Metallica was or wanted to have any part of it.
Hmm.
And Marshall and I could only do it ourselves because there was nobody there for us. And we got to the point of management with Metallica and wanted to put out a record, and the only way to do it was by ourselves.
So did you guys hear about them through like tape trading? Were you guys involved in that scene as well?
Well, we were involved in tape trading, but Metallica came to us via one of our customers who just happened to come back from a live show in San Francisco.
Oh, nice.
And he came to me and he brought me to Live at the Map, which is my favorite Metallica tape. And he gave me No Life Till Leather, which was their demo.
Hmm.
And in the book, you hear the whole story of how the process went before I played the demo. But when I did finally hear it, it blew my mind. I got it the first second I heard it. I knew this was very special. I thought it was America's answer to the metal scene, to Motorhead, to everything. And it had a very European flavor. And Marsha and I talked about it and said we wanted to get involved with the band. And we didn't have, cell phones or any of that crap in those days.
Yeah.
I didn't even have a phone in my store, which was really just a flea market booth. And I had to get the change out of the drawer, enough to call a phone number I saw on the back of a cassette. And I called up a fella who put me in touch with Lars Ulrich, and the rest is history.
Man. So there was, the thing about Metallica too is they were doing things a lot faster, I feel like, at that time than a lot of bands with the speed.
Oh, yeah.
Something I've always kind of thrown out there as an opinion, and feel free to disagree or agree with me on this, is I I feel like there's a lot of punk rock in metal, because of like the
Oh,
speed
yeah.
of it. And I've
Right.
often wondered how much like punk has influenced a little bit of thrash metal in there.
Well, I'm going to say this to you. When I first met Metallica, they were punks.
Okay.
They had a real punk attitude. They had a real I don't give a shit attitude. And they were as punk as punk gets. And it was living in my house. And they are very influenced by punk. And the whole scene of thrash metal came basically out of the speed and the intensity of punk music.
See,
You
that's what I
know,
thought too.
so yeah, it sure did. And then it went to the ultimate step with SOD,
Yeah.
Stormtroopers of Death, when they took the punk and really married it to the thrash and made it a heavy friggin' sound.
So with those early days and getting the No Life to Leather cassette and, trying to work with Metallica to get everything, ready to go for a record, how much material did they have going into those next steps? Were they still writing Kill 'Em All? Like, how
No,
involved?
they were ready. They were
Damn,
ready
so
for
they had
Kill 'Em All
everything.
Plus.
Damn.
Yeah, they had different names on the songs, I remember.
And
They had some different names.
uh, forgive me here if I'm forgetting. Was Dave still in the band around this time, or was he already out and Kirk was in?
Dave was in.
Okay, okay. So
He wasn't in
maybe
when they went to the studio. When they went to the studio, it was Kirk.
okay. So okay.
But the first shows, the first 12 shows, were Dave.
Yeah, so let's talk about that actually. When you were trying to get those first shows for Metallica, and you got in touch with them and everything, what did you do to get them to play shows, and how did all that work out?
Well, I was the promoter of the shows,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and if I wasn't, I was very close to the promoter. And I said, "Look, I want to bring in a band. I really believe in them. I think they're the greatest thing in the world." I played them the demos. Some of them got it, some of them didn't. But they saw my passion, and we got all 12 shows, and then we went on to tour even more.
Nice. Yeah, I
It
think
was
that's
all
something
passion.
yeah, and I think that goes a long way, especially for back then. I think that's changed a lot in the scene. You don't really see or hear that anymore, where like you can just be like, "Hey, this band's really good. Please put them on the show." You have to jump through so many hoops and ladders now. It's just impossible.
Well,
It feels
then
like.
again, you have to realize who it came from.
Hmm.
It came from me. You've never had a conversation with me when you're on the other end of a plea.
It's fair. That is fair.
I didn't get where I got by being a normal person.
I mean, that's it's incredible that like you really spearheaded a lot of this stuff in the early days, and I think that more people need to recognize that fact, and if they haven't already, which I know a lot of people have, but I think without
yeah.
you, what would we have? Where would Metallica be? And I mean, you're so integral in that, and I mean Anvil too. Like all these bands, you're so integral in getting them here.
Well,
And
you
getting
got
people
to
to hear
think
them.
of the bands. Dustin, does the audience know the list of bands, just the idea of who they were even? Like, I'd like to just say them just so you get a vibe,
Oh, please,
if
please,
that's okay.
absolutely.
But you had Metallica, at Megaforce, you had Anthrax.
Hmm.
We managed them for 11 years. You had Manowar. You had Merciful Fate. You had Raven. You had Exciter. You had Testament. You had Overkill. You had Ace Frehley. You had King's X. I think there's more. Violence. That's a pretty intense list. And then we managed Ministry for 5 years through Lollapalooza '92,
Oh wow.
when Ministry were the Catch Me Out.
Yeah, that's a great time for them. Man.
So that's what we've done. That's our lineage.
Yeah, and that's an
And
incredible lineage of bands.
And we did it all in 7 years.
Wow. And to think, man, like in those 7 years, like how much the genre was just evolving and rapidly changing. How were you trying to keep up with it when it was just changing so much during those times?
Well, I was leading the charge, so it didn't bother me.
Mm-hmm.
And the bigger it got, the more I smiled, because it was the metal that mattered to me, not how successful I was.
Yeah.
And I really tell the story in a terrible record I recorded, a song I did called Metal Rap. But in Metal Rap, if you listen to the lyrics or you read the lyrics, which are wrong on the internet, they have somebody else's lyrics.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, Michael Jackson's song is listed on the Metal Rap. It's really funny. But if you find the lyrics to Metal Rap, you will see it's the history of heavy metal from Cream all the way in those days to Metallica.
Mm-hmm.
And I mentioned about every band on the scene in those days in the song. The lyrics are great. The music's baba. And I'm ridiculous. But the lyrics to Metal Rap by the Lone Ranger, not Ranger, are really cool. If you want to learn
look that up.
heavy metal.
Yeah, I'll have to look that up. That sounds pretty interesting.
Oh yeah, it answers a lot of the questions that you've asked me just now.
Okay.
In a song.
In a song form, okay. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I never really thought about somebody making a song and putting all that stuff in there. That's a pretty interesting idea.
Yeah.
So let's go back to Metallica for a second here. So after you got them their shows and stuff, and you were working on getting Kill 'Em All made, you helped finance that record, correct?
I did finance that record.
Okay. So was it kind of the same case when you were like putting on those shows where like you were just, didn't matter if you ate, whatever, like just everything went into making that record?
Well, what happened was I was doing well at the record store, and I worked out a deal with the guy at the studio where I could pay him as I make the money from the record store.
Oh, wow.
I happened to be fortunate enough to pay for the entire album's recording and everything by the time it was over. I had paid for the album. But I owed my person who sold me records like $18,000.
Oh, my goodness.
And then Marsha and I went and got 2 mortgages on the house. The same day, 2 second mortgages. And that paid off the record bill. And then I realized, oh my God, the day came I had to release the record. I had to manufacture them.
Oh, man.
I had to advertise them. So I had to go raise the money to make the first 5,000 records.
And
not knowing if anybody was going to buy one.
Yeah, you took a huge leap of faith. But I mean, like you had confidence in the band, so I'm sure that went a long way too.
It went all the way. I believed in Metallica as sure as I believe that I'm talking to you right now.
So when you were financing that and you had to start printing, was it all on vinyl, cassette? Like how did it work back then with everything in physical media? Because it's a lot different than nowadays.
I don't remember. I believe it was vinyl, basically.
Okay. And so were you trying to get this stuff in... Since you had a record store, were you trying to get it in stores? How were you trying to sell them and get them out there?
When we started our store, Rock and Roll Heaven, nobody sold heavy metal records except us. And a few specialty stores like the Record Board, a few places in America. But when we made it a successful store because of it, all the stores wanted to sell heavy metal records.
Oh, man.
So then we started a record company. Now that everybody was selling heavy metal records, we called them all up and we gave them the records.
So that's about when Megaforce started the same time, like, to release a Metallica record. Is that correct?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Yeah, that's something I'd never really taken into consideration too, or really thought of, is like how rare it was to find metal records out in like stores and stuff like that, because I wasn't around
They
then.
didn't exist. They didn't exist, but I got Metallica into everybody.
Damn. So
Yeah.
So is it a case of like selling them to people? I guess I'm not very how do I put this? I don't really understand the business side of it, I guess, in terms of getting a record out there. Maybe you could explain it a little bit.
Record owners and record chains, like you had Best Buy or Crazy Eddie's or whatever out exists out where you are. Where are you, Dustin?
I'm in Tennessee.
Okay. My daughter was just in Chattanooga the other day.
That is exactly where I live. That's crazy. That is crazy.
Yeah, my daughter was just there the other day.
Wow.
At the Fairfield Inn and Suites. So anyway, what was the question? Basically, to answer you, the record store owners buy records for their shelves.
Okay.
And the chains have buyers, and the key is to get to those people and say, do you want this record? We'll sell it to you.
Interesting. Okay.
And you have to do it, and you have to sell thousands upon thousands. At first, they start with 3. Then they get 30 each. Then they get 5 cases. It just, as it becomes a hit, it just goes.
And that's kind of where supply and demand comes in, where it's like, hey, this thing's selling a lot.
No demand. Demand. That's it.
Yeah. So when it came time to release the record, I mean, how well did it hit? Like, because I have no concept of.
Well, we had also put out a Raven record.
Okay.
And the Raven record at that time sold about 27,000.
Wow. Yeah. You
as an independent in those days. Well, we sold hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
But Metallica maybe sold 5 or 7. It wasn't really until the Kill 'Em All for One tour that shit broke open big time.
And who were they on tour with on that tour?
You don't know these things.
No, I wish, man. I wish. It's hard to find stuff like that.
We took Raven and Metallica and put them together. Raven had an album called All for One,
mm-hmm.
and Metallica had an album called Kill 'Em All. So we called it the Kill 'Em All for One tour.
Clever. I like it.
And we paid to support them before, like nobody else did this in those days. And we had somebody book them a tour of the United States.
Wow.
And that's how we broke the band.
Man, so you were doing like everything at that point in time. You were band managing, record producing, record distributing. I mean, just doing absolutely everything, and it really.
We literally broke Metallica right out of the. We just did it.
Man, that is so incredible. I mean, that's always like the fascinating thing to me about the history of everything, is like hearing where these bands came from, how they kind of started, and who helped them along the way. Because you don't hear that too often, is like who helped them behind the scenes, or even in the scenes.
Right.
Like, because I'm sure a lot of people, knew who you were, because you seem to have been out in the scene, yourself, like going to shows and meeting people and keeping up with these bands.
Right.
Which nowadays I'd be surprised if people at record places do that.
You'd be surprised. They still do.
That's good. I toured a little bit myself, and it was pretty rare that we had anybody from a record company come out. I think it was like once or twice. I think Brian Slagle came out to a show once, and we're like, oh shit, So he definitely still goes out, but yeah, I don't know how it was back in the early days. So it's really awesome to hear like how you were involved in everything.
All right.
So were you there when they were recording the record at all? Like, did you get to see anything
Of
in
course.
studio? Oh, you were there.
Of course. I was there for the whole process. I was there for everything, man.
Oh
You really
man.
got to read my book, dude. You're doing this interview without reading my book. You should read the book.
Hey, I wish I just got an email like super last minute and just was like, "Hey, you want to do this?" And I was like, "Sure." So I didn't get a chance to get a book or
Oh,
anything.
what a shame. She
I
should have
know.
sent you either the audio book or something because there's so much to know. You'd have a ball listening to you. You'd get a big kick out of it.
Yeah, yeah. I'll definitely look into it. It's definitely on my list because it's like the fascinating part about all this is getting to know all that.
Especially if you love Metallica. There's some great stuff on Metallica in there.
Yeah. So I guess even though I haven't read the book, when you were in the studio and hearing them record everything, was there any like hiccups or things that got messed up along the way, or was it a pretty smooth recording process?
Well, what happened was I was away for a little while, and the producer said the album is finished.
Oh wow.
And James called me up. He didn't get to do his heavy tracks yet. And he said, Johnny, what's going on here? You better get your ass up here now. So I had to go up there and fight for more studio time so that we could finish the album. We almost had a not finished record.
That's crazy. Why did they want to say it was finished? Not the band, but the I guess
The producer felt that he had a great guitar record, but he didn't understand the value of the jugga juggas.
yeah. Huh.
And James had to go and heavy it up, or there's no Metallica. But what he had was a great Allman Brother album. You know what I'm saying?
Man, yeah. So
That's the truth.
So something I would kind of like to get your opinions on here is, because you've seen a lot of the genre kind of change and things happen within it. I would like to get your opinion on records that came out and what you thought of them during that time. Does that sound
Like
good?
what?
Well, okay, so
If I know them.
okay, yeah, we'll see here. So obviously, once Ozzy left Black Sabbath and did those first couple solo albums, like Bark at the Moon
Right.
and all those, how did you feel about those records with Randy Rhoads and that?
I was high on Randy Rhoads.
Yeah,
I
incredible
like some
guitars,
of the
man.
songs. I like some of the songs very, very much. But I preferred Sabbath with Dio.
Oh, me too, man. I really do. There's something
Yeah.
about Dio's vocals that just goes so well with the way Tony Iommi
You know,
plays
Heaven and
those.
Hell, Mob Rules, great album.
Yeah. So I guess speaking of that, yeah, what did you think of the little shake? I mean, you obviously said you prefer it, but with those records, I mean, did you think it was a bad decision at that time or a good decision? Like, it's a big shakeup to get rid of, somebody who's been in the band so long for another legendary vocalist.
You talking about Ozzy?
Yeah, like when they switch from Ozzy to Dio.
I have no opinion on that whatsoever.
Fair.
That's their personal business. I don't know what went down.
Yeah, well, I didn't mean necessarily like the shakeup of it, but as far as like
I
how
thought it was great with Ozzy.
Mhm.
I think it is great with Ozzy. I thought it was great with Dio. Sabbath, I love.
Yeah. So I guess another one is the introduction of how the genre kind of gets heavier, so to speak, when death metal came around and the Florida scene. What did you think of the transition into that?
Well, I have to be honest with you. I look at it two ways. I don't like music where I don't understand the vocals.
Okay. More of a
And the
melodic
vocals
guy.
don't have a more melodic flow, yeah. However, I've been listening to some of the new music right now. it is so intense and in your face with the death metal vocals
Yeah.
that I actually have enjoyed it.
What are some bands you've been listening to lately?
Well, the bands I'm listening to aren't exactly brand new.
Okay, that's
You
totally
know, I mean, I listen to Lamb of God.
fine. Mm-hmm.
I listen to Machine Head.
Nice.
I like very, very much Arch Enemy.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
man.
they're one of my favorite bands ever. You know, oh God, there's so many. I just listen to whatever. I still listen to Old Fear Factory. You know, Ministry. I go back to, but as far as the new stuff, I really couldn't even tell you if a band came out today, except for one new band I really love. They're actually from Florida. They're called The Absence.
Yeah, yeah, I know who they are. Yeah.
I think they're fantastic.
Yeah, they got a real old school
Fantastic.
vibe about them.
They got a great old school vibe, but it's contemporary.
Yeah. Yeah, it's got that good
The last
production.
album is great. It has good players on it. You know, Michael Leone is on it from Soulfly, and Jeremy Kling, who's now in Venom Inc.
Yep.
You know, it's just Joe Concepcion, who plays with Arch Enemy and Sanctuary. So
Yeah, it's like a
good,
super group
and the bass
almost.
player of Soil Workers in the band. You know, so they're a very wonderful band. That's a great one for now, for really right now, the second new.
Yeah.
And other than that, that's about it for me. You know, I'm sure there's others, but you know, if you want to know the truth, I'm listening to a lot of jazz lately.
I mean, hey, it's awesome that you still keep up with it, which is pretty awesome because I often wonder that myself. Like, all right, man, when I get older, am I still gonna be listening to heavy metal? And I'm pretty
yeah,
sure
the
I will
greatest
be.
band. Yeah, it's the best music, man. It's foreground.
Yeah, that's true. Let's see here. Pantera, how did you feel about them when they came around? Because
I
they
didn't
started off
care
as
about Pantera. I was off at Pantera for management. I passed.
oh wow. And was this when they were still kind of hair metal, or was it when they were like Pantera that everybody kind of knows now?
Pantera. I
Okay.
didn't care about it. I think
Uh,
Phil Anselmo's a great guy, and I think that Diamond was, you know, they were all great guys.
yeah.
But I was up to my ass with Ministry, really, at the time.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Let's see here. Well, so uh, hope if you don't want to talk about this, that's totally fine. Uh, since you were there in the early days of Metallica, I mean, when Cliff Burton passed, that was a kind of a unfortunate blow to the scene. I assume you knew him pretty well. So how was that? When it happened.
It was devastating, guy.
Yeah.
You know, the story I always tell is that when they lived in my house, Cliff Burton used to read my daughter the stories before she went to bed.
Oh man.
You know, I mean, that's how close we were. I was with Cliff the day before he died.
Oh my goodness.
You know? Yeah, man. I hate to tell you. It was very bad. Very bad. And it's all in my book. There's a whole thing on Cliff Burton. And it's
Okay. Yeah, let people listening know about your book. What's it called? It's Heavy Tales. That's what it's called. But just to let the listeners know.
Yes. Well, the only reason I mention it is A, because that's what I'm plugging.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
B,
Plug away.
I've been told by thousands and thousands of readers that they love it and they read it in like 3.5 hours.
Oh my goodness.
It just reads like a movie. So it's a cool thing.
When did you kind of get the idea to want to write a book and start going and writing it, I guess?
Well, I retired 2 years ago.
Okay.
And as soon as I retired, I said, let me write a book. and just tell the story the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, how can you not? With
And,
everything that you've been involved with, it would be a crime to not hear these stories and know about what you know, put into the heavy metal scene.
Oh, there's some great stories in it. Stories that are just fun. I didn't do a book about drugs and rock and roll. I did a story about metal
Yeah.
and what it was like to make it all happen and building an empire. Very cool. I know I wrote it. I'm saying very cool, but it's a very cool book.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that, man. It's your work. You can say it's as cool as you want.
Well, I'm the biggest critic of myself, Dustin. I am the biggest critic of myself, and I just love this book.
Hey, every artist is, man. I feel the same way. It's like every time I make something, I'm like, that's either really good or really shit.
Yep, right. And if it was really shit, it wouldn't come out. Because I know what it's like to put out really shit.
Oh, man. Well, I want to say, man, it's been awesome getting to talk to you. I feel bad I didn't get to read the book because I really would have loved to ask more stuff about that. So regardless, I really appreciate your time and sharing all these stories with me. It's been awesome to hear them.
Wow, just in time. The lightning and thunder just hit.
Oh, man. I guess you could say that we got to ride the lightning, right?
Oh, we got to ride the lightning.
Awesome, John. Well, where can people get the book too? Just so our listeners can know, and I'll link to that when,
Go to
when I put this up.
Amazon.
Perfect.
For the book and Audible for the audio book.
Awesome. Audiobooks. You hear that, people? If you're listening to a podcast, probably love audiobooks. Well, John, thank you very much, man. I really appreciate it, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.
All right, thank you. My dogs came to say goodbye.
All right.
Take care, man.
Thank you.
Be excellent to each other. And party on, dudes!